Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome back to Depictions Media Radio. I'm your host, Michael Clogs, and in this next segment, we're going to get an update about the BC Wildfire Outlook and Preparedness Update. Joining this press conference is Catherine Conroy, Minister of Forests, Matt McDonald, Lead Forecaster from the BC Wildfire Service for the July fire seasonal outlook and update on seasonal fire preparedness. So let's listen to what they have to say.
Good afternoon, and thank you everyone for joining us today. And I wish to recognize I'm on the traditional territory of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish Nations. I'm Katrina Conroy, the Minister of Forests, and I'd also like to introduce Matt McDonald. He's on virtual, and he's going to be on the screen, and he's going to take us through a presentation of the latest wildfire seasonal outlook in a few minutes. Matt and I had a similar event just about a month ago to present June's wildfire outlook, and we're back again to update you on once again. Matt is a meteorologist and has been the lead forecaster at BC Wildfire Service for the last two fire seasons. Before that, he was a weather forecaster with Environment Canada. And I truly value his expertise. He's got a lot of experience, and I'm very grateful that Matt's chosen to call BC home. But before we get to the latest wildfire outlook, I just want to provide an update to the province's efforts to protect people and communities this season by preventing wildfires before they occur. I recently had the opportunity to travel to Williams Lake to witness some of this work. I met with the Forest Enhancement Society of BC, an agency that helps communities both reduce wildfire risk and greenhouse gases while improving wildlife habitat and forest health. They deliver projects like harvesting and removing beetle-damaged trees to reduce wildfire risk, and they support communities to employ fuel management techniques like thinning trees and removing underbrush. And they've even worked with communities to create emergency wildfire escape routes. And while I was there, I saw some of these projects firsthand, met with Williams Lake First Nations, and to see what they were all working on. The nation is restoring the health of the forest by thinning and pruning the trees, and in time returning to the traditional practice of applying cultural fire to the land. And the nation has actually created more than 300 hectares that's treated and is working to develop more area for fuel reduction. And these projects, they help keep people, their homes, and their communities safe. And this is why we're providing the Forest Enhancement Society of BC an additional $25 million this year so they can continue supporting important community-led projects that reduce the risk of wildfires. Applications for this latest round of funding is now open, and communities deserve all of our support, especially as the threat of wildfires appears to be increasing with the ongoing effects of climate change. Although you wouldn't know it right now in the Lower Mainland and across most of BC, it's wet, which is a good thing. But we are hoping for a better season this summer. As every British Columbian knows, we're regularly facing some of the toughest wildfire conditions we've ever seen in this province. And that's why the funding to FESBC is just one part of our recent budget to protect British Columbians from wildfires, which totals $359 million in new funding. We've actually made the largest investments in the history of the BC Wildfire Service. This includes $145 million that will help us transform the organization into a year-round service and shift from its current reactive model focused on fighting fires after they start to a more proactive model. We know that prevention works and must be supported at the local level across the province. And that's why we're more than doubling annual funding available for wildfire prevention. The investments we are making are all about people and keeping us safe from wildfires as we adapt to the ongoing impacts of climate change. And with that, I'd like to invite Matt to walk us through the outlook for this summer.
Great. Thank you, Minister Conroy, and thank you for the floor time this afternoon. I'm really happy to be presenting to you from the traditional lands of the Ktunaxa, the Sayelks, and the Sinaiks people in beautiful West Kootenay of British Columbia. So a quick overview of where we're heading today. Before we step forward into the seasonal outlook, we'll take a look back at how June played out, both in terms of precipitation and temperatures. We'll take a look around the province and see how our current fuels sit. And then finally, we'll get into the outlook and what the next half of the fire season might look like. So last time Minister Conroy and I met with you, you may recall we were calling for a wetter and cooler continuation to June, and I'm happy to say that's what materialized for the southern half of the province. On the left-hand side, this chart shows how our temperatures played out compared to historical averages, and you'll see lots of white, which is near normal, so those cool June temperatures that we often see, but then areas of blue down around the south coast and along the southern interior, so those were indeed cooler than normal. And really our heat was confined to the northern half of the region, up in the northwest corner of the province and down through the Peace and towards Prince George is where we saw the real the warmth this June. And in terms of precipitation, again, the southern half of the province was quite showery, as indicated by these shades of green down along the south coast in through the Okanagan, and then definitely up towards the northern Caribou. And that really helped recharge those drought anomalies that we were seeing earlier in the season. Now, the areas where it was drier was, in fact, again, the northern half of the province. So not only was it warm, but it's been drier north of Prince George, upwards into the Northwest Fire Centre and a large expanse of the Prince George Fire Centre as well. Lightning is something we keep a really close eye on here at the BC Wildfire Service. And this June, across the province, we recorded just over 60,000 lightning strikes. And that was just a bit higher than our historical 20-year average of 59,000 lightning strikes. So a fair amount of lightning across the province. But really what played in our favor was this ongoing presence of snow over the ridge tops and really reduced the amount of fires that we saw ignited from lightning. Typically, throughout the month of June, we usually see upwards of 110 lightning-caused fires start. But this year, much quieter thanks to all that snow and the humidity at Valley Bottoms as well. We only saw 30 new fire starts from lightning. Taking a look at where our fuels currently sit in and around the province. On the left-hand side here, we have our build-up index chart. And that represents the total amount of fuel that's readily available to burn and where we currently sit compared to historical averages. And again, you'll see a lot of white and a lot of green. So we're either near normal or below normal. And not too surprisingly, up in the northwest corner of the province there, where we've seen those warm temperatures, the lack of precipitation is where we have our most fuel that's readily available to burn. On the right-hand side here, we've got our drought codes and how they compare to normal for this time of year. And again, you'll remember perhaps from the beginning of June, we had a lot more pockets of yellow and brown around the province, particularly in the South Caribou, up and down the Okanagan, and a good portion of the Rocky Mountain Trench. And again, from that showery pattern that we've continued to see, we've helped to really recharge the moisture and eliminate the drought in those areas. But the area of interest here is up in the northwest corner of the province, where we're already seeing some fire activity. So from a statistics point of view, I think you'll all know that it's been a pretty quiet start to the fire season. We've recorded 217 wildfires as of July 4th, and comparing with our historical numbers, that's about half the number of wildfires for this time of year. And then they've all been relatively small fires, so we've only burnt 2,748 hectares so far this season. And if we compare with our 15 or even 20-year averages, that's less than 10%. So suffice to say, it's been a quiet start to the fire season. It's worth emphasizing that upwards of 60% of our fires are traditionally started by lightning. So again, we track that quite closely. And looking at the dryness of our fuels up in the northern portions of our province, it really speaks to how receptive those fuels have been to lightning. And just this past weekend, we had a bit of a lightning event up there. The vast majority of those strikes were dry, so not accompanied by any rain. And we saw 11 new fire starts up in the Northwest Fire Centre over this past weekend. We continue to see about 14 fires burning currently, with one of them growing over 2,000 hectares, burning close to Highway 37. As we move forward here in the latter half of July, really our success is estimated to continue to be high in the southern portions of the province, simply owing to the slow fire behavior. due to those moistened fuels. And in the north, really it'll depend on a quick response time and successful initial attack. So let's shift gears here and get into the outlook now that we have a good feel for how our fuels are currently sitting. And this is the latest guidance from our partners at Environment and Climate Change Canada. And these two charts cover the period from the middle of July out through the middle of August. And we'll start with the chart on the left-hand side here. There's a pretty clear and consistent signal that we've been seeing over the last few weeks for these warmer than normal conditions to finally materialize. So as we get into the latter half of July, not only will we see these summer-like temperatures finally materialize, but they'll likely be warmer than normal, likely by the tune of a degree or two, which over a 30-day period is definitely noteworthy. In terms of precipitation forecast, there is a weak signal here. We're talking 30 to 40% for most of the province that we'll see drier than normal conditions through that latter half of July and through the beginning of August. But it's worth mentioning here that the longer range forecasts, unfortunately, don't have as much skill in forecasting precipitation as we do in the temperature forecast. And a lot of that is given the fact that during the summer months, a lot of our precipitation comes from small scale thunderstorms, or what we call convection. And that's simply impossible to forecast anything beyond kind of the 2 to 3 day period. So we'll have to see how the precipitation plays out, but we're rather confident that we will be getting into warmer conditions here as we get into the heart of summer. Stepping a little further out into the months of August and September, here's the probability of those temperature anomalies continuing, and you'll continue to notice a lot of orange and red, and there is good agreement looking at the other international weather agencies that this pattern will continue through August. But as we get into September, we start to see that signal fade. So the confidence diminishes, and we'll most likely see a return to near seasonal temperatures as we get towards the end of August and into September. But definitely a little bit of heat for the middle of summer here. So what does this mean for our wildfire outlook? Really, through the first part of July here, we've seen ongoing showery pattern, primarily through the southern parts of the province. That precipitation, unfortunately, has eluded the northwest corner of the province, as well as the Yukon, where they're seeing quite an active start to the fire season. And really, to draw upon an example from the end of June here, it only takes 2 or 3 days of dry weather with a little bit of wind and warm temperatures. So if you recall that last week of June, we had a bit of a heat event, and these charts at the top here indicate our fine fuel moisture code. And all we needed was 3 consecutive days of warmth, a little bit of wind, and low relative humidities. And you can see just how quickly those fuels become receptive to ignition. As we dig a little bit deeper into organic soils and look at our larger fuels, this DUF moisture code shows, again, how quickly this is over a period of 5 days, those conditions can change. So even though we've seen a slow start to our fire season, all we need is a week or so of warm, dry weather, a little bit of wind, and our fuel conditions can change quite rapidly and be receptive to ignitions. So to wrap it up here, it was a cool and showery pattern through the month of June, again, for the southern 2/3 of the province, but really our focus right now is on the northern third of the province, from the Cassiar through the Liard into the Fort Nelson area, where fuels remain a lot drier. We do anticipate an ongoing initial attack success in responding to fires over the southern 2/3 of the province. And for those northern regions, it'll really depend on the incoming lightning here. We have forecast over the next few days whether or not that'll be accompanied by any rain. There are increasing chances as we get into early next week that we'll finally get some rain into that northwest corner. A little further out, we are expecting that transition to warmer and drier conditions to finally present themselves through the middle of July and as we get into August. And so that will mean an increasing fire danger trend across the province. And we can only anticipate a higher number of fire starts and increased fire behavior as we get into that warmer part of the summer. So with that, I'd like to pass it back to Minister Conroy. Thank you. Mr. Conroy, thank you.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks once again. Thank you and everyone at BC Wildfire Service for all you do to keep our province safe. The important work that you do and the team does, it supports the efforts of communities around the province to protect people from wildfire risks. And overall, across BC, wildfire activity is currently relatively low for this time of year. I think I'm one of the few people in the province who's okay with the rainy weather that we've had, but we've been really, because of that, we've been really pleased to be able to support our partners to the north, but in the Yukon Territory and Alaska, where it is so much drier this year. There are actually currently 113 personnel from the BC Wildfire Service that are supporting the folks up in the Yukon, and this includes unit crews, initial attack crews, support personnel, and specialist resources like fire behavior analysts. Last year, during one of our worst and most challenging fire seasons, we gratefully received support from 917 out-of-province personnel, including resources from the Yukon. So supporting each other in times of need is really important and something that BC is proud to be able to do. And before we turn it over to questions, I just want to encourage everyone that's listening to visit the firesmartbc.ca website to learn what you can do to protect your home, your community, your neighbors. It's a great website, gives lots of good information, as well as I would encourage people to download the BC Wildfire app. It shows you where all the current fires are, what state they're in, whether they're a fire of note, whether they're out, whether they've just started, and where they are in the province. My Minister of Finance was just telling me that she's downloaded it, and when she travels in the province, she uses it so that she knows where she's going and what's happening in that area. So it's a great app, another thing that will give you up-to-date, regular information about where the fires are in the province. And with that, I say thank you, and we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Minister. A reminder to reporters on the phone, please press *1 to enter the queue. That's *1 to ask a question. Please also remember to take your phone off mute. You will not be audible until your name is called. For media in the room, please line up at the microphone provided and wait to be called. Please make sure to provide your full name and outlet. Media will be limited to one question and one follow-up. For our first question today, we'll start in the room. Please go ahead.
Hi, Ajaza Kamara, Radio-Canada. My question is for Mr. MacDonald. It will be in French. À quoi peut-on s'attendre pour le mois de juillet concernant les dangers des feux de forêt?
Merci pour la question. Nous allons parler d'un mois plutôt pluvieux et froid pour le sud de la province. Et donc, ça a vraiment réduit l'activité des feux de forêt pour les 2/3 sud de la province, alors que dans le nord, là où il a fait plus chaud et plus sec, on a déjà vu là, un début d'été un peu plus actif. Et plus nous allons avancer dans le mois de juillet, les prévisions à long terme indiquent la probabilité d'un virement, là, d'une tendance vers des températures plus chaudes et un manque de précipitations à travers la province. Donc, avec cela, on va avoir un assèchement de nos forêts et puis on peut s'attendre à une activité plus augmentée là, de ce qu'on a vu à date. Donc, une deuxième moitié là, d'été beaucoup plus active de ce qu'on a vu en ce moment.
Did you have a follow-up?
Merci. No, thank you. Merci. No, thank you.
Do we have any more questions in the room? Great. For our next question, then we'll go to the phone lines. Our first question is from David Natalini, City News. Please go ahead.
Hi, yes. My name is David Natalini from City News Vancouver. My question is for Matt McDonald. So with BC having a lot more rain in June, how does that impact fire safety now? Is this more of a short-term solution, or when will the risk start increasing after a certain point?
And, it's one thing to get showers over a couple of days and have it be spotty, but in this case, through the month of June, it was really widespread, and it was deep and consistent rain that we saw not only in our wetter belts, but in some of those really, dry belts that we were observing earlier in the season. And I think about, the Southern Caribou down through the South Thompson and the Rocky Mountain Trench that I mentioned earlier. And to get significant amounts of rain into those areas have really helped recharge those deeper fuels. That being said, again, it only takes 3 to 5 days of warm, dry weather to see our surface fuels and kind of the middle layer fuels dry up. So the likelihood of getting, big, large, deep burning fires is relatively low right now. But again, it does not preclude us from seeing increased fire activity as we get into the heart of summer. And with the forecast that I presented today, there is good chances of getting into that warm weather. So inevitably, we'll likely see an increase in fire activity.
David, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just one quick follow-up question. Looking forward, what areas of the province are more vulnerable to these lightning strikes that could cause forest fires?
Potential for ignition from lightning strikes, we typically look at something called our depth moisture code. And when those values are above 30, that indicates the potential for ignition from lightning, or what we call holdover fires, where sometimes lightning strikes and these fires can smolder in the ground for a day or sometimes weeks. So really,
this show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.